Everything is crashing. Have you heard? Oh my God, we all got to run for the hills. No, this is not the big crash. I think this is just the beginning of the process. We'll probably recover from here. I think the bigger crash comes closer to November. So is it time to panic? It's never time to panic, my love. It's time to relax as always. All right? And we're going to go through why this is great. So I am so happy this is happening. Yay! Because this is all part of the process. And I'm going to show you why right now it's a great thing that all of this is happening. So what's happening? The stock market just took a massive tumble, almost unexpected from what all the analysts are saying, right? $2.9 trillion gets wiped off the market. The worst day since the 2020 COVID crash. Oh my God, what are we gonna do? What's actually happening is exactly what the warning was that we just sent out a little while back. It's the Japanese yen that is now unwinding. The Japanese yen carry trade is unwinding. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's okay. Most people don't know what I'm talking about. I didn't even know what I was talking about until I had to figure it out. Also, I got my red market shirt on, right? I think I'm going to start representing the market in shirts. Maybe that's a thing. But in reality, what happened is the economy has been shit for quite some time. The markets have been great for quite some time, completely unnecessarily, while the insiders were all running for the hills, and they have been leaving the markets in droves. So if you go bar charts, insider trading, okay, you can see for yourself. You can be a grandpa and click on random things and things go wrong. If you go to bar charts insider trading, you can see that the insiders had been running from the stock market. And we've been talking about it for a while. The reason is because the stock market was topping out and they knew what was coming down the road was a big correction that's playing out now. Okay. Now, am I jumping into the markets now? No, because this is just the beginning of this process. It's definitely not the time to get scared, okay? It's the time to actually relax. Look at this. Somebody sold, whoa, this is $4.3 billion were sold just on this one day. The insiders have been selling through and through the whole time. But Sim, you're saying that this is great. Why is it great? Well, before we get into why it's great, let me explain what's actually happening. What people were doing is they were going, so Japan has had low interest rates, so you could get the yen for basically free for a very long period of time. So what people had been doing is they had been borrowing in the Japanese yen and pumping that into the stock market, especially into the tech market, okay? And this is the NASDAQ. So it had just been pumping like crazy. Nvidia, all these things were just going crazy because there was free money you could get from Japan, and you could convert it into the dollar and you can invest it directly into the US stock market. Now, the Japanese yen has fallen off of a cliff. Well, the US dollar versus the Japanese yen has fallen off of a cliff. And in that process, now those debts are coming due, and it's time for people to sell their stocks that they used the yen to buy and pay back those debts that they have. In that process, we're watching the stock market tumble. So this is the correlation, okay? This is the Japanese yen, and this is the NASDAQ. It's all like clockwork, okay? That process playing out, it wasn't even obvious to me until Julian Bridgen sent out the emergency alert just like a week back on Real Vision. But this process playing out does not mean that everything is just going to tumble from here. That's just not how these things happen. Because what actually happens is people became super bullish, super, confident that the market would just continue going up forever just very recently. That's a huge sign. So many people, even in crypto, were so sure that Bitcoin is going to go from 60,000 to 100,000 to 200,000 like that, because they're comparing it to previous cycles. When that happens, you got to be careful, right? Because in order for us to go to that promised land, to a said moon, we need a lot of money to be printed. Okay, so this unwinding of the Japanese yen trade is hitting the stock market, but oddly enough, it's not hitting crypto. Right, that also concerns me because I can see that usually this does play out and it does end up hitting crypto. So at some point it will. Okay. Am I running in and buying things hand over fist? No. But here's something amazing. This is liquidity. This line is liquidity. And we just broke out from that level that we've been at for a very long period of time. Okay. That is a great sign because I think this is the Central Bank of China has started printing money and dumping it into the markets. That could be the reason why Bitcoin isn't dropping right now. That is also what we need for the market to go to the next leg. Okay. Now that liquidity being printed is at the same time as the Japanese yen trade unwinding. So this drop is with money being printed, right? That kind of tries to equalize how much money is leaving the markets and how much money is coming in. Clearly, more money is leaving the markets than is coming in. At the same time, we're watching the bond market have a complete meltdown or up, depending on how you look at it. But basically, let's call it a meltdown. The US bond market's having a meltdown. All of that is usually a signal for a recession to hit in the US. So what's going to happen now, what's happening live, is everybody was super bullish, everybody was super confident that we're all going to go to the moon. And now it's starting to set in that, hey, maybe we're not going to the moon, maybe we're going underground, okay? This is the beginning of that process, especially when you have falls like this, it scares the shit out of people. What happens then is there's a bounce. So between sometime mid-August out to September, October, I would expect a bounce. So everybody considers, okay, or gets lulled into a state of complacency, a state of safety to feel like everything's fine. Then in November is when a lot of this data is saying that we would have a real fall, a real proper dip, right? I call it a correction. A lot of people are going to call it a collapse. A lot of people are going to call it a lot of different things. I think that's when the Federal Reserve drops rates, and that's when we get the real, moon time playing out. Up until then, this trade is going to play out the way that it's meant to play out. Now, that's why I don't think this is the big crash, okay? Money printing has started. That's a good thing. Check. Fear needs to come back into the markets because, we need to understand that these are very volatile times and we need to, people need to run for the hills, or from the hills if you really want, for us to really go to the next stage. Because Wall Street does not want you to be on the bus or the train when it leaves, okay? The whole point is to scare the shit out of you and make you run for the hills and make you think that the world's ending. So you get out of the markets and sell it lower than where you bought it. And then they buy it and they go off. Okay? So welcome back to the fear stage of the world. The Federal Reserve is probably going to drop rates during this process. And when they drop rates, markets fall off of a cliff. When bond yields uninvert and go back to normal, the markets fall off of a cliff. Now, what a lot of people do is they make the mistake of trading the markets the way that they are today, not how they're going to be in 9 months or 12 months or 18 months, okay? Today, for the next little while, I would expect a bigger crash in Bitcoin. It's going to do this, but I would expect a bigger crash in Bitcoin. In 9 months, I would expect crypto to be way higher than it is today. In 18 months, I expect the numbers to not make sense because the amount of money printing is going to go bananas, okay? So this is the greatest opportunity to buy that's coming up. Let's make sure we capitalize on that opportunity, and let's make sure we don't get, shaken out. And, at some point we'll see the insiders start to buy in the middle of that crazy crash. That'll be a good sign to start buying. We'll also see this money printing continue, and especially from the US and a lot of the other central banks. That'll be a really good sign. And people will be scared. I'll get calls from people saying, hey, my portfolio's down. I usually, one of the things that starts to happen is people then start being like, Sim, you told me to buy this and now it's down. Fuck you, Sim. And that's already starting to happen in some capacity. So I could tell that this stuff is changing in a big way. But all of it's a great sign. okay? And if you buy stuff, please just remember, and I've said this 1,000 times, but take some personal self-responsibility, okay? I just say this 1,000 times, and I'll say it again. What you do in your life is your fault. If you just listen to one person and do whatever, that's your fault. You want to point fingers and do whatever you want. I don't lose sleep over the fact that I'm honestly telling you, do not make choices just because you think somebody's right all the time. I've been wrong so many times. If I'm wrong again, I'll just add it to the pile of things that I've been wrong about. It's not about always being right. It's about the probability of it being right. So the probability says that we are beginning the cycle of the crashing process, which probably plays out over a few months, because so this is important, right? The psychology of investors takes months to shift. Just like the psychology took months and months for us to get to the point of feeling this bullish, the psychology will take months and months for us to start to feel bearish and negative. So as that psychology shifts over the next few months, I am going to buy up all of that fear, because there's great opportunities in this market. Already there's great opportunities. I'll release a video later showing you those opportunities. But coming up, we're going to have an amazing opportunity I think the final opportunity for us to buy things up at pennies on the dollar. And then by 2025, out into probably beginning of 2026, most likely until the end of 2025 is the greatest bull run in history, where markets melt up, currencies melt down, birds start coughing, we get introduced to the next stage of cyber blah, 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 and AI mutating blah, blah, blah. In the middle of that, let's enjoy the process. So thank you for watching. If you're like, hey, Sim, you tell me, okay, not to follow you, but give me some resources as to how I can make my own plan. In every single video in the description, there's a link where you can build your own strategy for free. Okay, don't subscribe. I don't care about those things. Just make yourself a plan. I've taken my entire process and I've made it free below. If that's useful to you, watch the video, download the PDF below it, fill out your own strategy, go through that process, and then you can build yourself a plan according to your needs, and you don't have to pay a single penny for it. Fair? See you next time. Much love. Yay!